Welcome to a live version of CRM audio, and this isn't that much different than what we normally do because we're usually live when we're recording. But we put the link out there, and if anyone wants to join us and ask your questions, we have that open right now. If not, we've got plenty of other stuff to talk about. So we got all the bases covered here. We got George Doubinski in Sydney, where it's morning time. Myself, Joel Lindstrom, in South Carolina, where it's evening time. And then, let's see, we got Ulrik. And where are you, Ulrik?
I am in the North Bay, north of San Francisco.
Cool. And we got Daryl LaBar, Mr. Indianapolis there.
Yes, sir.
And Stephen Smith. And first off, Stephen is the newest business applications MVP as of about 12 hours ago. So maybe not even that long. Been MVP.
Congratulations.
So how has your life changed today, Stephen?
I'm walking around a little bit more with a puffy chest, shoulders back kind of feeling, so can't complain. It's still kind of surreal though.
Yeah.
Because I totally forgot about it. Wasn't even
So you probably have, some people now who wouldn't give you the time of the day a few days ago will now talk to you. And
yes, the women really love the MVP status.
And people will think you actually know something now.
Yes. If they didn't before, now they really will.
All right. So I didn't plan anything, but is there anything we should do to, initiate or haze Stephen into the group?
I want to welcome Stephen because this meeting is actually the first time I'm not the newest MVP in the group. So I think it's awesome.
Yes.
Not old timers like me and George.
Yeah.
George, I can't remember. Were you awarded the same year as me? I was 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going back a long time. I had a funny thing happen at work yesterday. Funny me anyway. It was something about somebody dug up a tip of the day from like 5 years ago about the sort order in lookup fields, not entering the sort order of the lookup view. And in that view, in that tip, we had said, quoting somebody from Microsoft, that it's in the roadmap to fix it. Well, it still works that way now. So, and I had my response. They said, "When's that update coming out?" I said, "This was 5 years ago. I don't think it's coming."
Yeah. How long did it take to fix not in clause? And we do occasionally get comments like tip 27 or whatever. Your tip is shit. It doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't, because it was for 2011 or something like that.
I always find it funny, people who think we still care about tips after we publish them. Once they're published, out of sight, out of mind. We've moved on to the next tip. So we have a number of really interesting news stories to talk about. First one, I guess the biggest one on a lot of people's minds is the Power Component Framework, if that's what we're calling it today. So, who here has written a power component so far?
Whoa, easy. Okay, which one?
Daryl, you've churned out about 10 of them by now, probably.
I have a grand total of 0 so far.
No, I think, Joel, you're mixing up two things, as most people will do at some point. You mix in components in Canvas apps and Power Apps Component Framework.
Yeah.
Which is for creation of custom controls.
No, that's what I'm talking about, Jordan. I'm talking about the custom controls, which don't work in Power Apps yet. I'm talking about the controls. I want to see the rush of controls that we were supposed to get when this came out.
Yeah, but to confuse you, there is a Canvas. There are Canvas components, which is basically a mashup of the existing controls that you can package.
Okay.
I've got the link.
So what you're saying, George, is you haven't written any yet.
I've got cool samples, which I didn't write, but yeah, I've got samples.
So are you
I did write Hello World. Yeah, I did.
Are you retooling the Bad Master class now that this is out, George?
We did show it. Last time, but just a demo. So this time around, yes, we are going to include the whole module on kind of developing new age developing on the client. So creating components and controls and what's not, and kind of reusing things. A bit of TypeScript. Yes, and the next one is coming to Hawaii. So we straight after Bass. Yes, straight after Bass.
Do they have dynamics in Hawaii, or you just want to go to beautiful locale?
It's basically we're gonna be there. It's halfway between America and Asia. So if people coming from Australasia don't feel like flying 27 hours straight and have a break in Hawaii, is your option. So you fly to it's about say from Sydney, it's about 10 hours to Honolulu and about 10 hours to Atlanta. So it's actually a good flight. So good stopover. Do some stuff on weekend. On Thursday, Friday we teaching, and then have a break. But to top it up, we now have MAD workshop in addition to that master class. Wow. Basically, a lot of people who are not developers, managers and project managers and other people up the food chain, so they're a bit confused about the developers and citizen developers and what's not. So we have like a half a day workshop telling them how to deal with those.
So is one of the topics when you should fire your developers?
Yes. Can you? No, it's called "Can you fire your developers now?" And I'm not telling the answer. You have to come and join.
So the people who are more developers than me, which is most of you, can you explain to me and any non-developer listeners what's the difference between a power control and a web resource?
No, I haven't created a single one of these things, so this is going from what I know of it. But the power control is supposed to be tied to an actual attribute of some sort, or to like a grid of some sort. Where a web resource, am I wrong? Help me out, George. What is it? Save me. Save me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope.
It can be bound. It doesn't have to be. There is it can be unbound, so you can draw whatever you like. Okay. Fundamentally, the difference is that your web resource is iframed HTML, right? Yep. So, like from under the hood, if you open the hood, so it is what it is. So it's injected HTML and iframe. PCF allows you to effectively go in and extend your DOM, so object model. So you actually live inside the page. So you live inside the model-driven form, right? Going further, I don't know when it's going to happen, but the intent, my understanding is that the intent is to eventually allow that into Canvas as well. So effectively what you're creating with JavaScript on the fly, or with TypeScript that gets compiled, on the fly you're actually injecting your code, or your code is being injected and allows you to modify the surface that you live in. So which creates, and it can be obviously bound, it can be unbound, can be bound to the field, can be bound to the data set, giving you flexibility, can shove and move your data in and out, and it behaves the same way. So the forms, the hosting form, understand what you're talking about. So it's kind of integrated world we live in, but obviously tapping it directly into the into DOM of the form gives you a greater flexibility. But obviously with that and greater power, and with that comes responsibilities. Obviously, it will be very easy to kind of nuke your form out of the existence by creating ill-behaved controls.
So
yeah,
with that in mind, George, here's the question. Do you still write web resources, or can you, for visual things on the form, do you switch everything to PCF?
Moving forward, I would say PCF will be the way to go. So,
okay. And isn't it a difference? I mean, I look at the original custom visual controls they had, like my favorite, the flip switch or the editable grid. You know, one difference is those are controls that I can put basically within reason. I can replace, say, instead of the bit field or the 2 option field, show the flip switch wherever I want, or instead of this view on this entity, when I'm on my phone, show that. So, you know, it's a level of reusability that web resources don't have, right?
Correct. And moving forward, hopefully it will extend to, I don't know, I'm dreaming here. I have nothing to support it, NDA or no NDA. But imagine if you have a control that can live either in model-driven or canvas or, God forbid, portals.
All right, so we have some new people. We have an audience. Joining us now are Steve Mordue and Scott Sewell.
Hi there. Just wanted to see how you're doing. How you guys are doing.
Yeah. So now the Microsoft cops are here. Now we got to.
That's right. I'm here as an NDA police officer. So just
and then Mordue's here. Mordue's here to complain about it. So I don't know. So next topic, and you know, Steve and Scott, feel free to join in this discussion. So this is a comment that came from somebody in Fast Track, and again, I wasn't in the conversations, and so this is kind of saying it. But basically, there's not a lot of investment happening with virtual entities. You remember virtual entities, the big hoopla with V9 about connecting to the data sources. That's kind of died out because now we have embedded Canvas apps with all the snazzy connectors and all that. So, question for you, would you still use virtual entities? I mean, I'm thinking about this. There's a lot of things where embedded Canvas apps make a lot of sense. If there's a connector for it, check. If you want to interact with it, create records in that other source. But there's some capabilities that you have with virtual entities, such as the ability to do advanced finds, create notes against it, those types of things, where it's of value. So I guess the question, just throwing at you, if you were seeing a need with the customer where a virtual entity might fit, would you feel confident using it, or would you move away from it?
I think there's 2 separate problems that they're trying to solve. You could solve with that. With the virtual entity, you can treat it like it's a real life entity and have it show up in the grid, have it show up here, have it show up there. Where the Canvas app, you're having to push it wherever the heck you want it, one at a time. And so it's just really dependent on what kind of experience you're wanting your end user to have. You know, obviously the Canvas app is going to be more pretty and more focused on exactly whatever you want to do in that specific instance. But it's going to lose out on some of the functionality of looking like a real live entity within CRM itself or within CDS itself.
Yeah, and it's virtual entities are not deprecated, and I think David Yak made the comment that plugins aren't seeing a lot of changes either, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't use plugins.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, and I think the big reason that virtual entities haven't seen as much use by people is because it wasn't exactly what they were hoping it would be. I think they were hoping to have some editability of these read-only things, and it wasn't just read-only data. I think they want to be able to edit it as well. So I think that's where I think that's really where you're going to see the big push to use a Canvas app where you can actually edit the data versus a virtual entity where it's read-only.
Yeah, Steve, I see you there and you're muted right now, but do you have any thoughts on this? As you're doing your ForceWorks or other solutions, would you use a virtual entity?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that I would. We hadn't gotten to the point where we started using those.
That's Steve.
And it kind of feels like they're moving away from them. So I probably wouldn't start down that path now.
What do you think? Other Steve too. Now I can't say MVP Steve because Steven's an MVP as well now as of today. So what do you think, Stephen?
I'm not. I look at virtual entities, which we used to just do with plugins before it was actually called virtual entities. For more specialized use cases, I tend to not like them just in general, for the fact of latency. So I've had customers who've been insistent on trying to use virtual entities to query from online to on-prem, which I vehemently was against because, especially if you're starting to create like fetch queries where you're joining to a virtual entity that has data on-prem, you're just looking at a lot of issues. But in general, the times that I have considered virtual entities, the data would be, for example, right next to the CRM system, whether that was on-prem or online. So if it was online, that data would need to be somewhere in Cosmos DB or SQL Azure or something like that. But I haven't really had a lot of instances where I've wanted to use those.
Okay.
So I
think we heard like half and half. I think the takeaway would be in some cases we would consider them, but it's worth considering. And if you can do it, because I mean, one thing I found is with a Canvas app, if you can get the data to a collection, it can be faster than working with it from the other system if there's latency. So I think it's worth considering and not use common sense, I think is the answer. That's the motto, right, George?
It's a trademark, so stop using
it. No, it is, but to Daryl's point, if it was a little more feature rich, I think they'd be a lot more usable than having to do the work to format data into that, special virtual entity format and all that.
Yeah, it's a little more plug and play.
Yeah.
But look, to be honest, a lot of us been doing equivalent of virtual entities for a long time. It's just standardizing the way data is fiddled with, using technical term, inside the plugins. So I think fundamentally there were some inconsistencies how they were architectured, but moving forward, I see some of the things coming in the shape of connectors, which brings me to actually a slightly different topic. It's about flowing the data through. Let's put it this way. So connector would allow you to flow the data through. So if in the shape and form that you want, which is effectively what virtual entities do, and you just consume it on the other end. Like a sausage factory. So, which brings me to the topic I know nothing about, and maybe Ulrik can answer. Data flows, they were pitched as the next best thing, and then kind of everything is quiet, and we don't hear much about it. What's happening there?
This should be when Ulrik and Scott Sewell jump up and grab the pitchfork.
Yeah, what
the virtual entity, use a data flow and embed a Power BI dashboard, right?
Right.
So the functionality that would be is very different. Data flows would be a data lake that you have as a part of your Power BI subscriptions, where you have all your tables, you do all the transformations, all the querying, and you basically have them ready to go or use for some purpose, which could be dashboards, etc., via Power BI inside Dynamics 365. One of the benefits of using data flows, one of the big benefits of using data flows is that you get access to automated machine learning via the data set that you put in there. So if you query all your opportunity data and your activities, etc., into the data flow, you can actually automate various machine learning algorithms directly within the data set. You don't have to move it to Machine Learning Studio and so on. You get a lot of benefits from doing that. You also get some different types of refresh rates depending on the subscription that you're on. Especially if you are on Power BI Premium, you can get some fairly fast incremental refreshes on your data, so you have fairly updated data in your data flow too. in comparison to what you have to Power BI. So it doesn't really fill in the bucket of saying like would you go virtual entities or data flows. They do have separate purposes. So I know Scott's been looking into them too. So he's still on.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't know that I have any deep experience on data flows, but I think to your point, Ulrik, it's a difference in the purpose, and I think from like a virtual entity.
I think that's, to me, the thing that was promising about virtual entities was the ability to still act on the data without it living in the database, meaning be able to query it with advanced find or create related records like notes and activities. And so that, I think sometimes maybe a Canvas app plus a virtual entity might be a good fit if you need to give users the ability to query the data, and then you want them to be able to act on it, create it, delete it, whatever. That's good. So,
did you notice, guys, that Scott Sewell actually sitting on the background of Microsoft picture of New York City, right? And when you do that, Teams blur the presenter, not the background.
Oh, really?
Because Scott comes to like blurred most of the time with the crisp background with the
very
Microsoft
good
logo.
That's not a problem, George. It's a feature. All right, so Steve Mordue, I have to say full names here since we have two Steves. Talk to us about the blog post you wrote about Microsoft's new answer to App Exchange.
Oh, well.
Because we have several people on who are ISVs.
I'm sorry, guys. I have to go in about 2 hours. So just let you know.
I read it, but I don't know if I really understand that. So what's the big deal?
Well, I think if you're not an ISV, it's not a big deal at all. So if you are an ISV, then it would impact you, and you need to be thinking about it. Microsoft is moving towards more of like an Apple closed system eventually around business applications, where people who want to participate in that ecosystem, like ISVs in particular, that have been making money on Microsoft for free for years, who've also been complaining for years about the lack of support and help that ISVs get. With the recent introduction of Googs to take over that team, it looks like he quickly figured out, well, if there's no money in it, then nobody's ever going to care. So they've introduced this revenue sharing program for ISVs that, if you want to build on our platform, you got to give us a couple of bucks, but we're going to use those couple of bucks to reinvest back into making you successful and solve all the things you've been complaining about for all these years about us not helping you. There was no money in it. So they created some motivation for their teams, both co-sell teams as well as the ISV teams, to make the ISV motion work like it always should have. It's a little controversial at the moment just because it's new to a lot of the ISVs, but this is not new. I mean, Salesforce has been doing this forever. It's a very common practice with platforms. Microsoft just hadn't done it yet. I'm working on another post now that'll be out in a couple of days that kind of does the other side of that, which is what you get for that. Because right now the focus is all about, I got to give you guys some of my money, but you're not just giving them money to play, you're also getting some benefits. And I'm going to kind of go through an outline. I just had an hour call with Anand, fleshing out what some of those were, so I was able to really make sure people understand what they're going to get in exchange for that. So we'll see. It's a new program. It's a work in progress. These benefits that are coming are a lever that they can play with. I don't see them playing with this revenue share. If you listen to the announcement audio that Goog said, he specifically said, if your ISV solution is not installed through AppSource or is not certified in AppSource, even if it's side loaded, we're going to be letting the customer know that, hey, you got some freaky software on there that it hasn't been validated by us, so we don't know what it could do. And I think that's going to cause a lot of customers to expect validated software. Microsoft's going to create that as a new minimum threshold, I think, for ISVs, which is good because there's a lot of cowboy ISV junk out there right now. And the 10%, the first level, is going to be unavoidable. If you want to be an ISV in business application with Microsoft, prepare yourself to to give them 10% of your ISV revenue, but lean into the benefits that they're going to give you back, and see if you can build an ROI on that. Personally, I think you can, but again, I've had lots of thoughts about ISV and AppSource in the past. It didn't turn out yet, so that'll be the key right now. Is Microsoft doesn't have a good track record here.
What iteration of an app store is this? We had Pinpoint, then we had Marketplace, then we had AppSource. Was there any others besides it?
There's been a lot of different iterations and a lot of little things that were started by a small part of a team that never got anywhere. But this is a pretty coordinated effort. Googs is pulling. I mean, he's a pretty high-ranking guy pulling all this stuff together. AppSource was Scott Guthrie's idea. It wasn't some PM somewhere on some team. So it's got sponsorship and leadership behind this thing at a pretty high level. It didn't have at the ground the leadership. There was one person had responsibility for a little piece over here and another person over here, and Googs is now kind of brought in over top of that whole team and said, okay, let's make this thing work. So I think it's going to be good for ISVs.
Can I ask you a question? The AppSource on Azure side, right? So there's Azure side of things.
Yep.
And from what I hear, things do work. Perhaps not exceptionally well, but people do publish their stuff on Azure. And to me, the critical difference is that on Azure, because there is a way to measure consumption, and that includes consumption of your app or whatever you created, right? There's a clear model where Microsoft charges consumption, and you get in a slice of that consumption that is relevant to your component, app, whatever, right? So to me, the fundamental, and I did bring it up during the meeting, to me, one of the fundamental things would be the licensing, and I don't mean licensing as business application licensing, I mean licensing, ISV licensing, and monetization model that should come. To me, if AppSource had that, I would jump straight in. I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't think twice, because then the burden of the ISV licensing and consumption of my IP is taken over by Microsoft. And I feel happy, this big machine taking care of all the things I really don't want to do, right? I'm in IT business. I'm in IP business. I'm creating stuff. I don't want to sell this stuff. Well how good am I at selling stuff, right?
I would say a couple of things. AppSource actually has been not AppSource, but Azure has been very successful marketplace. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons that they're really going down this path, is because they've got a model for Azure that works very well for customers and ISVs. And so they know it can be done. And that's part of what Googs keeps bringing up, is how it works over on Azure. Azure is a different buyer. That's a IT buyer. AppSource is a line of business buyer. So the pitch will be a little different. And they can't just replicate exactly what's going on in Azure, but they do want to replicate the success. To your point, commerce is coming. Licensing will be part of commerce, so they will have that ability at some point in the future. But for now, it's going to be kind of a self-report mechanism. They're charging you, or they're looking for you to pay them 10% of your ISV value. So that doesn't include the underlying license that they're selling them, or Azure consumption that it's using elsewhere that you're paying for. This is just that'll be a little area that I'm sure will have to get negotiated and fleshed out, is what am I paying this percentage on? They do have the ability to scan all. This is online only, by the way. This doesn't have anything to do with any on-premise. So this is strictly for online. They do have the ability to, it's some old thing. They do have the ability to scan all online environments and identify, solutions that have been installed. So they can find you if you're out there, and So I think one of the comments I heard today, and maybe you guys saw it also, was about the fact that if I'm putting my app through AppSource and that is successfully creating a sale, I'm all for giving them 10%. But if I got my own sales team or my own channel out there selling direct to customers, and AppSource and Microsoft didn't have anything to do with it, I don't think you should have to pay them anything. And I can see that point, but and maybe Microsoft is certainly not afraid to put the cart before the horse sometimes. Like George, you said, they don't have commerce yet, they don't have licensing yet, but we're going to start putting this model in place. Maybe another way they could have approached it was said, we're going to put this model in place for AppSource so we can prove to you guys that we can perform our end of the deal, and then we'll roll it out across everything. They might have being a little aggressive here with no matter how your app gets in, you have to pay us whether you use our resources or not. But we'll see where some of that stuff shakes out. We're at the scream and cry mode at the moment of people just seeing something new. We actually have to wait for that to settle down, let it sink in, the reality of what's happening, and then I think we'll start getting really more intelligent feedback from ISVs about what they really would like to see in the way of benefits and what's of value and what isn't. But it's still a little while away from that calming down.
Yeah,
So
I think we've hit our.
I
think George, we've hit our licensing and ISV quota for this episode.
No, I want.
I'm boring myself.
This, 5 stages. Of,
Scott's just sitting there saying, "I
AppSource
can't talk about any of this stuff."
Steve,
sorry, I was watching him nodding his head.
So, Steve, do you have the post about 5 stages of AppSource adoption? Like currently we're in anger state, right?
Yeah. Well, I call it the scream stage, but yeah,
I have a comment here, a question here about what this actually is going to mean to people and customers who are using Dynamics or using AppSource, because I'm also looking at the marketplace inside Power BI, for example, where you can go in and download all the custom visuals that people make available that have been certified and so on. And fair enough, it is now possible to charge money for those custom visuals you want to use inside your report. What I have a little bit of an issue with is you can actually have a free version of your visual with in-app purchases if you want to get access to the full custom visual, which starts sounding very much like, whatever games it is that your kid downloads on your iPhone with all these in-app purchases to get like additional costumes and whatnot. And I think that road it doesn't sound as conducive as it should be, because that also means you're going to get a lot of those basically crap-free applications, which sole purpose is advertising for the paid version, whereas there's actually no benefit necessarily in using the free version. So I'm a little cautious about how that side of it is gonna end up. Because it sounds like we may get a lot of clutter in AppSource, which is not.
So you're worried about the fart app version of the Power BI control.
Yeah, right. Well, you'll have a little bit of time because Power BI is not part of this program yet. They're not pulling Power BI into this rev share yet. That doesn't mean they won't, but they're not doing it right now. But you're right. I mean, part of the problem with AppSource is it was just this big cesspool of broken, unsupported, abandoned junk. And they're going to go through a process of recertifying everything in there, which will automatically clear out. Frankly, I think 2/3 of what's in there, at least, is going to be gone. And then it'll be up to them whether they let it just fill back up with crap again that just happens to be able to meet certification. It's almost like they need 2 bars. They need your app is technically sound, but it's also worthy. I don't think they're thinking about getting into the worthy determination business, but at least technically sound.
Right. So kind of on that note, more marketing. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've been in like the Flow or Power Apps or Power BI desktop, you've seen the little pop-up that says Business Applications Summit is coming, and it's kind of annoying after a while. But anecdotally, I have evidence that their marketing strategy is effective, because my sister, who is not technical in the least, she's an accountant, she started doing some Power BI reports, and she saw that, and so now she's registered for the Business Applications Summit.
Nice.
So it shows that they're doing, and just anecdotally, if she's signing up, they got to be driving some attendance through that, and that's smart for them to leverage that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a partner focused event like some of their others. This one is a user. I mean, we're all welcome, but this is their user event. So it doesn't surprise me that they're getting a little more overt to reaching out to users. With that
It's
message.
interesting. They have the pop-ups inside of, the maker experience for Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI. I haven't seen anything pop up inside Dynamics, and that's interesting. I guess since the maker experiences are coming together, that will be the maker experience for it.
Oh, we got till June. They may be ramping that up between now and then too.
I see pop-ups for local like dashboards in a day seminars too.
So they had, I think she said 6,000 last year. They're expecting double this year. So 12,000 people. That's a pretty good chunk of people. They got to get them from somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's going to be users, I guess.
It makes sense. I'm not going to be able to go this year, so I'm sending my sister in my place.
11,999 then.
Yeah. Are the rest of you going to BizApp Summit?
I'll be there.
Not sure, but I hope so.
Maybe. I'm not planning to be there.
Better question is, what, Joe, you doing at Build?
Oh, you didn't see the news? It's a citizen developer conference this year. There's a lot of citizen developer content along with developer content. So I'm actually going to some Power BI educational sessions because I figure I can't let Ulrik have all the cool tricks.
Has Build been user facing before? I don't know if I've ever thought of Build as user facing.
No, it's a developer contest, but they're broadening the definition of developer to include more citizen developers, not end users, but more IT pros and light developers. And if you look at there was a post that was shared today, I think Charles Lamano shared it. It's basically case studies of real people, not developers, who have built apps. Some of it was Power Apps, so one was Power BI, one was some guy who, has cancer and he's building a website about, fighting cancer. And so it was in relation to Build, and the point was that developer is broader than coders. It's also people making apps. So so I'm going, and part of the reason I'm going is because I wasn't able to go to MVP Summit. I'm not going to be able to go to BizApp Summit. So I need to get to Seattle so they don't forget I'm here.
Yeah, right. And you just told Daryl he's not a real person.
Yeah, exactly. No, developer snobs, right, George? I think that was the term I used on Tip of the Day. So on that topic, what does it mean with the connectors for a Power Platform are going open source? And Steve, I think you educated me a little bit that it's not all connectors; it's just the Microsoft controlled ones. Not if somebody, the example is that George has used numerous times as SurveyMonkey. He wants to use SurveyMonkey, and there's a connector, but it stinks. Is that the word you use?
Yeah, and we George and I had looked into some of this previously on some stuff. One of the requirements they have for connectors, at least public connectors like that, is you have to own the API. So, for example, and there may be some workarounds, but on its face, it means that George couldn't build a MailChimp connector and offer it. The only people that could do that would be MailChimp. So obviously, Microsoft built some of the first connectors. They built the Salesforce connector. They built, to kind of seed that market. So I think that they'll open source all the ones they built that weren't ultimately taken over by the vendor, because some of the ones they built were then taken over by the vendors. But they're not going to go open sourcing some vendor ISV's public connector that they got approved. It's really not their IP to open source. So I'm expecting.
So let me ask you a question about that. Where's the line in the crazy embedded world we have now, where your solution for Dynamics can have a Canvas app embedded in it, your Power BI dashboard could have a custom connector to MailChimp and have a Power App embedded in that. You could package that in some kind of a solution. Can you sell it in that context if it's not a reusable component that somebody can take and build something new? Could I sell an ISV solution that has a Power App, Canvas app embedded in it that I've extended or built my own connector to MailChimp?
So first of all, you couldn't build your own connector to MailChimp. Well, you could as a private.
There's an API. If I build
As a
a private
as a-
connector, can
as
I
a private
package that
connector.
into?
I wouldn't see why not, because that's your IP. It may not do people any good if they don't have a MailChimp account, because you'd need to be able to connect. They would need to be able to ultimately connect to that. We're waiting for they just gave us a new term for it. They were calling it parameters for a while, and they just were talking recently about the new term. But basically, this has been the piece that's been missing for packaged ISV solutions to be able to use things like Flow or embedded Canvas apps or any of these connectors, is that you could pull them onto your solution, publish it, and go install it on a customer's instance, and none of that stuff's going to work because you weren't able to pass through any of the parameters, if you will, to activate those things. So this new, and I'm frustrated I can't remember the term for it, but they were just talking about it. But they're going to be giving us the ability to be able to do that, where it could be packaged up. They're solution aware now, which I think means it works fine if you're going from dev to test to prod, but not if you're publishing and then going to some customer's tenant installing. It kind of falls apart there without these parameters. But we're close. We're close to that.
So
I would
Daryl,
be interested to know. Hold on, I've got a question for Daryl as well. So
I would be
interested to know. You've spoken first, but I thought about it first. So I would be interested to know how packaging custom connector would affect certification and app source, because it's the way to sneak it in, right, for the customer. But is Microsoft going to point finger and say, hey, hold on, you don't own the API, stop right there. So that's the interesting story with custom connectors. But for Daryl, as a developer here, the real one, what does open source and connectors mean for you as developer who works for customers and develops something?
You had the same question for Daryl that I did, and my flavor on that is, I get your motivation for publishing things to the community, for publishing things to XRM Toolbox, or building your own open source tools. But what is the motivation for a developer to contribute to an open source connector for a commercial product like Flow, for example?
The really only benefit that I see developers having in that is if they are actively using it and finding an issue with it or something that they need to improve for their client. And that's where the beauty of that is, this isn't working because of yada, 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 or, hey, I need to connect to my own custom thing that's very similar to this. How do I go and grab that and then fork it to what I actually want to use it for? So I see those as being the two primary benefits of it being open source. But as far as a developer going out and open sourcing and creating something for another vendor, that guess maybe that might happen if they go and they create it internally for a customer, because they can't sell that. They can't give that away because Microsoft says, no, they can't do that. But you might be able to say, hey, I've created it for you. You guys can go ahead.
I'm saying, like, if they open source the CDS connector for Flow or whatever, and so you go in and you do a poll and you write something. Would you be motivated to do that, to contribute to that, since it's a connector for a commercial product, or would you spend your time writing your own for your own development purposes?
Let me rephrase that, Daryl. What do you think the chances are Microsoft is going to take the pull request from you?
Well, they just took my pull request on the docs, so that's a start, I guess.
There's a missing comma. Pull
Did
request.
you fix the spelling error?
Microsoft is still a major software company, so they have the same software struggles that all the other customers out there, the other companies out there have. So if the pull request is valid and it helps solve an issue or make something better, I don't know why they wouldn't take it. The primary issue there is just how inundated they would get. I don't think they're going to get too inundated with community requests to go through. Either things are going to work or they're not going to work, and if it doesn't work, someone's going to go out and help them resolve that issue. What's
driving this? Is it we're not getting enough connector change fast enough? We want to explode that, or is it good PR, or is it both? What do you think is
cheap? I think it's cheap developer documentation.
Yeah, and I would also, they built a bunch of these connectors, right? And some of them weren't all that great. They only had one or two actions, one trigger. They weren't robust connectors. And now they've got, 250 of them floating out there, a lot of them that they've controlled. And they're getting requests from all over the place from everybody. Hey, I need this trigger. I need that action. So I think in a way, it's kind of turned into a burden for them to do that. So for them to open source it and say, hey, let's let smart guys like Daryl go fix all these connectors and add to them and extend them. I mean, I think Microsoft's the biggest beneficiary of open sourcing their connectors. Right.
And I think, having covered this for the daily brief where we run out of news, and so I got to dig into what connectors are new. Some surprising things. Have you been paying attention? What's the biggest types of connectors that have been introduced in the last 2 months? Category.
Is this a test?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no clue.
Blockchain.
Oh,
There's
boy.
all these blockchain providers, and it's like, I know they're a dime a dozen, but are people, are they mining Bitcoins? Are they using it for development purposes? And every now and then somebody signs up at CMUG for, use blockchain with your CRM deployment, but I've never seen, I think for transactional stuff like F&O and where you got, that type of thing, it makes sense in cases, but, it's interesting to see that it seems heavy on the blockchain, but they've had, they slowed down for a while. And I think, agree with you, Steve, I think they wrote most of the initial ones, including the Salesforce connector, but then it's picked up and you got a momentum going now where they added something like 10 or 10 plus in April. And so, just proportionate wise, it is, some nice movement. And I've been surprised going through the common ancillary systems that we come across, like Zendesk, ServiceNow, Salesforce, all these. There's connectors for them now, and Jira, and they're pretty good. And so, now that you can do embedded Canvas apps, it's really the way that I approach integrations for those types of systems has totally changed from what we were doing 2 years ago. So the value is clear. And hopefully this will spur. But
well, I think part of the reason it's growing too is we have a tendency, those of us on the call, to kind of look through things through our biz apps lens. But flows goes well beyond biz apps. There's a whole side, there's a whole office. So there's a ton. That's probably the first step citizen developer tool is Flow. It's the easiest one to gauge with, the easiest one to use. You got citizens out there using Flow to connect third-party services to other third-party services, not even worrying about dynamics. So that's a much bigger ecosystem than biz apps alone. So it doesn't surprise me that they seeded it a little bit, but now there's people calling from all directions for more connectors that don't have anything to do with biz apps.
Flow is the gateway drug to the Power Platform. Because
Absolutely.
I'm looking at customers we have that are getting deep into Power Platform. Almost all of them started with a flow. It's usually an approval flow. And then their eyes open, the connectors, and then they add to it.
So it's a Trojan horse.
Exactly.
Modern day access.
Can I take another spin on explaining what does it mean? You all heard about .NET, right, Joe? You've heard of .NET framework.
I think you have to have like .NET 2.5 installed to install CRM version 4 or something.
Yeah. That
I
one.
just ask Daryl. Whenever everybody brings that up, I'll just ask Daryl.
.NET Core and things like that. Well, guess what? If you go to github.com/.NET/core, here's your open source for .NET framework. So the entire framework is open source. So, like what? Microsoft is concerned that someone's going to steal it? No. It's Daryl put it, quite nicely. It's a cheap dev docs. And if something doesn't work, you can dive deep and fix it up. Do they accept pull requests? I'd be curious. Pull request 3 on .NET Core. You'd think that would be more, right?
But I will say it's kind of interesting, like the templates. If you go look at the CDS or Dynamics 365 templates, they actually show the usage count. There's not a single one that had over 100 uses. Most of them were in the single or small double digits. So it's
I use
agree with you. They
templates
should
just
hide
to
that
see
number.
how everything's done. not to actually use in production. So when I'm building production flow, I start from blank.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
So we have a number of customers that use Power Platform. I had my first what I would call major flow solution move over the last couple days of moving from I've moved flows, but probably one at a time. But this is a process.
Joel saying, I have my major flow now.
So, but here's the thing. I fully learned that putting flows in Canvas apps and solutions isn't great. I mean, the idea is great, and I was all about I'm going to do this in a solution, and now that it's here, but what I realized is you put in the solution. If you delete that solution, you can't find your flow anywhere. I mean, maybe you can, but it's not clear where it would be. If you want to say, okay, now I want my managed service support person to help this, he or she has to dig up the solution the flows in and find it to edit it there. So I took it out of the solution and moved them one at a time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Neil Benson was saying something here recently about he'll start using Flow and recommend using Flow with his, enterprise important critical deployments once all the complaints about all the issues and tweaks and little fiddles with Flow are gone. And, if you're going to use Flow as a citizen developer to create some little notification when something happens, and if it doesn't happen, then it isn't the end of the world, then, knock yourself out with Flow. But if you're going to build ISV solutions or mission critical enterprise level solutions, I think I'm kind of with Neil. I want to wait until the complaining about this thing doesn't work, or when I do that, it doesn't do this, that stuff dies down before I would feel comfortable with it.
Well, I don't see how you totally get away from that complexity when you got more than one connector in it. If it's self-contained in Dynamics like a workflow, it's pretty solid. And I mean, I've had flows that I've updated 50,000 plus records with, and they've all succeeded beautifully, very dependably, runs day in, day out, doesn't shut off like it did 2 years ago. But if you have multiple connectors, there's just built-in complexity where when you bring it in, you have to choose, should I update the existing one? Should I create a new one? Should I, what's the connection string to this Azure service and that other Azure service? And it's just a natural complexity that I don't know how you get to that being more automated if you're kind of bringing your own. That kind of makes me appreciate why they roll out the AI for sales or AI for customer service. They don't have, bring your own Azure SKU or Azure key. They just have it all seamlessly work. And I think that's the way to make it more of a seamless product.
Well, the step we've taken with our ISV solutions is we, up until recently, deactivated Flow so that users using our solutions couldn't use Flow because we didn't want to introduce problems for us to have to deal with. So we're not creating any flows as part of our solution, although there are some workflows, but we have reactivated the button for them to be able to create their own flows and just said, citizen, knock yourself out. And we don't want to limit you because you're hearing all this great stuff, but we're all on the DLs and we're on the, I'm assuming you guys are on the Power Apps DL as well. And there's still every day some issue and the team's coming back with, yep, that's a problem, we'll go fix.
The DL goes to a different folder on it's like a pool next door that I occasionally stick my foot into. But when I had all those emails, especially when when we became business applications, suddenly, boom, we had Power BI, Power Apps,
F&O.
Flow, F&O, Business Central, whatever that thing is. Have all this stuff coming in. I just had to create a rule. It's got 1,200 unread emails. It's kind of cool though. It's like I ask a question, then I'll dip back in and see if somebody answers it. And I'll occasionally once a week stick my head in there, see if anybody's mad. The good thing is usually if somebody's throwing bombs or complaining about stuff, usually I hear the echoes of it and can go in and pop the popcorn and watch the fun.
It is another repository that you can go search on too. Even if you're not watching it every day and paying attention and staying up to speed, there's thousands now of messages in there, and it's a great archive to go search sometimes for something you're trying to figure out.
Yeah. So let's see. We're at the end of our time, but Stephen Smith, you still there?
Yes,
He
I
went
am.
into audience mode.
All right. So since not everybody was here at the beginning of the podcast, and that since Stephen is the baby MVP, do we have any advice for him? Make a name for yourself and complain about something. Like send an email saying this licensing is totally terrible.
I want to send out a blog that gets copied throughout Microsoft and talked about like some people.
Yeah, I think that's a great move for a new MVP.
Yes.
I'll give you a little story. I did that when I first became an MVP, and I got a friendly email from this guy named Joel Lindstrom saying more or less, "Hey newbie, you might want to watch your tone if you want to stay an MVP very long."
Well,
yeah,
you remember that, Joel?
I do. It was about the Outlook client, and I think I was a little bit more friendly to the Outlook app than you were. But
yes.
So Steve, since you brought that up, have you warmed up to the app for Outlook, or you still see gaps in it compared to the Outlook client?
So, which one are you asking?
Any Steve can answer this question.
I'll let Steve go. He hasn't talked much.
No. I haven't really actually done a lot of work with the app for Outlook yet, so my perspective is a little shallow on that one.
So the most exciting thing in the app for Outlook, from my perspective, is they're soon to be releasing a version that'll work on CDS without the first-party apps.
Nice.
Up to now, as you know, in order to get it installed, you had to. Those bits came in with one of the first-party apps, so they've separated that out. As a matter of fact, got it on one of our test environments here, trying to flesh out some issues with it, where you could basically build a custom Outlook app to match your custom Power App model-driven solution.
Nice.
So for us, we're excited because we've shifted everything onto the stack. So all of our ISV solutions run on P2, and that was one of those missing features that we've been clamoring for. So yeah, pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Still not a fan of the COM ad in it all.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, the biggest thing is the rollout and upkeep of it is so much easier. I mean, and I've seen the fact you can set up so you add users and enable them for server side sync, it automatically pushes out. I remember just the weeks of turmoil we would have around the COM ad end and just how terrible it is. The biggest downside to it is it's on desktop reliance on Internet Explorer. Because I don't know about you, but on Windows 10, I cannot open up IE without script errors. It's just so outdated and so laggy and bad. And the fact that the core of Office uses IE as its rendering, it's not an Outlook add-in thing. It's an Office thing. And I know that Microsoft is trying to change that, such as moving to Chromium on Edge and moving away from
which is
IE.
Very good, by the way. Have you tried that?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's my default browser and everything.
Same here.
So
same here.
That's when
I think it was you that had
said.
I think it was you that had said a while back that your customers that never had the Outlook desktop app love the Outlook app, but the ones that had the old one are the ones that weren't as happy with it because they'd gotten used to something different, and they're not the same thing. They're not intended to be the same thing. But those that have never seen the old one, love the new one.
Right. Here's my prediction. Teams has a risk of becoming the new Outlook client because, like Outlook, it's got all these add-ins, including CRM going into it, and it's quickly becoming slow and bloated, and could definitely reach that point where it's crumbles under its weight, kind of like Outlook did. So I hope it doesn't, but I find if you don't do upkeep, like turn off the teams you're no longer part of and don't let the channels build up and everything, it quickly becomes trying to be that one-stop place you do everything. Soon it becomes. I love Teams. I just see a lot of similarities, and I've had customers who, once they see the integration with Dynamics, want to have everybody do everything through Teams. I always caution a little bit against that, knowing from having nightmares about the customers that said, we want everybody to just use Outlook.
Yeah, I guess having everything in one place sounds like a great thing, but having everything in one place means everything's in one big pile. And it's not necessarily as good as it always sounds, trying to wade through all that stuff that is in one place. Sometimes it's nicer to have my emails over here in another place.
Yeah, if the Swiss Army knife was the perfect weapon, why isn't the Swiss Army running everything these days?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you never see a slasher movie where the guy's using a Swiss Army knife, and he's always got like a bayonet or something. You know,
Exactly.
It's just not efficient for slashing.
All right. Well, that's a violent end to the podcast. Anyway, you want to promote? Everybody's. I mean, we're MVPs. Of course, we want to promote something. I'll be at Build next week. So if you drop me a line, I'd love to get together. I'm going to try and get some stickers or something to hand out to people who stop by. George already promoted his bad class. What about you, Steve?
I'll be up at Dynamics 365 Saturday, Philly. And then I think after that, Business Application Summit.
All right. Daryl?
I'll be teaching a unit testing class at CRM UG in Florida this year.
And Ulrik, you've got a podcast coming out tomorrow.
All right.
What's that about?
So we have a conversation on analytics and field services. So predictive field service. Calculating when will the various devices actually break down based on the data you get, what type of analysis you do there, along with which is machine learning algorithms, versus what kind of ranking of work orders, which order you should do them in based on DAX calculations and so on, and how that matches up against some of the features that Microsoft gives you out of the box.
Very cool.
Could you hook it up to George to see when he's going to break down?
We can all predict that.
So,
Stephen Smith,
we're talking about vibrations because vibrations are always important in machines. So we need to hook up something to George. I'll measure his vibrations.
I thought you had to use temperature for predictive stuff, right?
No, that's just for demos.
Stephen Smith, you got anything big going on? Now that you're an MVP, you got to worry about keeping it, so you got to start contributing.
Yeah, I've been in the lab for the last few weeks writing some code on a little project. I've got a couple projects going on, but nothing I'm publicizing publicly yet.
All right.
So
great.
Yeah.
This was fun. It's good to see people's faces and a little different twist in what we do, and kind of a surprise of who's going to show up. So that's always fun. So
I want to figure out that Sewell background trick.
that was, but he's gone now. So.